Paul's going to say a few words about his journey.
Hello, my name's Paul Lawrence. I'm here as well as a cannabis oil user. 2010 I was diagnosed with a disease called chordoma. Fortunately this is 1 in 5 million people, so not a lot of people knew a lot about it. By the time they found this disease, what chordoma is spinal tumours. Tumours grow literally from my spinal cord. By the time it was initially found, I had a football-sized tumour growing in my back. I became the first person in the world to have 3 vertebrae completely removed from their body. They removed 3 vertebrae, they took 5 ribs out, they took a bone out of my leg and managed to rebuild me with a whole shitload of titanium. That was in 2010, May 2010 that all this occurred. It was also 43 hours of surgery they put me through to get this achieved. They didn't expect me to survive the surgery, but I don't know. I've been a pot smoker all my life. I think I really didn't worry about it. I had supreme confidence in the doctor that was doing the surgery. I had confidence in myself to get through it, and I got through it. Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of the disease. Over the next 3 years, I had another 7 operations to have more chordomas removed from my body, occasionally with a bit of bone with it, occasionally a bit more metal put in. I have some quite spectacular pictures of x-rays and operations, but I don't really want to show them because my story is not about where I came from, it's about where I'm going, to be honest with you. I'm just giving you a bit of background here. About 12 months ago, actually, the date was June 17, 2010. I got to the stage where I was taking that many prescription medications. I was having what I call toxic meltdowns. Now, these toxic meltdowns were occurring with me ever since I started on the prescription medications. Originally, and I studied sports science in the 80s, so I have a good understanding of what's going on with my body, and I've been told by old doctors that I do read my body extremely well. These toxic meltdowns had never occurred in my life before until I started on prescription meds. And when I started on them, it started off once every 3 months. I'd be violently ill for between 6 or 8 hours, unable to get out of bed, sweating profusely, vomiting, diarrhea, just sick as a dog. I've just basically put up with it. I had a 9-year-old boy, I had to get through life, you just do what you do, and I put up with it. But these sort of toxic meltdowns started to occur more frequently over the next 3 or 4 years. It got to the stage where in June the 15th last year, I literally couldn't get out of bed for 36 hours. I couldn't take my son to school that day. And from where I was in the world, my son is everything in my life. If I couldn't take him to school, I couldn't function properly in the world anymore. So I got out of bed after a day and a half and I said, I'm not taking any more prescription medications. People want to talk to me about the effects of pot, which, as I said when I asked our politician a question, I've smoked pot quite openly and proudly for the last 35 years. Most days, I'm probably one of the most chronic users you'll ever meet, and lo and behold, I also have a university degree, a trade certificate, and I've run a company for 20 years, staying every day. I digress there again, as I said, the story is where I'm headed. So, June last year, I stopped taking all medications. They had me on Tramadol, they had me on Endone, they had me on Valium. They tried to put me on all other sort of shit that you can sell on the street, but I continually said to doctors, if you can sell it on the street corner, I don't really think I can function in everyday life if I'm consuming it as well. So I avoided some of their medications. But yeah, I stopped taking meds. It took about 2 months of sweating every night, not sleeping, having stomach cramps, sometimes diarrhea, just being horrible to get them prescription meds out of my system. Fortunately, I smoked every day at the time, and that pretty well got me through. So yeah, after I got the prescription meds out of my body, I realised that I still had a terminal disease that kept recurring. Chordoma is terminal and, according to traditional medicine, pretty well untreatable, except by surgery. I know I did. Some things I did while I was on medication, this is what I don't get about it. When you're on medications, they start off with a pain reliever, they start off to help you sleep. But these medications build up in your body until you're in a position where you're living in a daze. You think you're functioning, you think you're doing really well, but you're not. You're not doing as well as you could be, and you don't even realise it. The effects sneak up on you that slowly. You're in a position that you really can't see the position you're in until you stop doing it and look back and go, holy shit, what was I doing? The reason I think, holy shit, what was I doing? Because after they initially removed my tumours, I was told that to ever get rid of these, I'd have to undergo what they called a megadose of radiotherapy. The recommendation that I would survive this megadose of radiotherapy is one other person had been administered with this dose. According to the doctors that measure radiation in units of grey. Well, I only underwent 70 units of grey over a period of 7 or 8 weeks. On the recommendation that the one other man that had this dosage 10 years ago was still alive. I got through it, I managed to survive it, but at the end of the day, the tumours are still growing. After I'd finished this megadose of radiotherapy, I still had 2 tumours growing in my back. It took another 6 months for me to get off the pain medications to realise the position I was in, and I needed to do something myself or I was going to die from chordoma, and that's not really an option, not for me anyway. So I researched it, and I kept coming up with the same answer. Cannabis cures cancer. And it was more surprising to me than most, because I smoke this shit every day of my life pretty well, and I still had cancer. So I researched it. I've been smoking pot, which is basically the leaves or the heads of the plant that for you that don't smoke and are here for medical reasons. To make the oil that's required for medicine, you need the whole lot of the plant. You need the roots, the stems, the leaf, the whole shebang has to go in there. You make the medicine, you make the good medicine, and that's how we heal people. Because you're using the whole plant and not just the part that we've been smoking for the last all of our lives, you remove a lot of the psychological effects that people think it has anyway. Although, to be totally honest, I'm yet to see any psychological effects occur with myself. So yeah, last year when I gave up the pain meds, I started researching into medical cannabis. So I sourced some medical cannabis and I started taking it in November last year. I realise there's a government trial on at the moment, and I looked into it. I do tick all the boxes. I do have permanent pain, which I need to manage. Cannabis does work better for this than any other plant, any other medication I've used. Cannabis works better for pain. Even before I stopped using the prescription meds, I told my doctor, I told my radiologist, I told everyone, if I didn't smoke pot and take the pills at the same time, the pills were a waste of time. So they knew all along I was smoking pot. When I went in for my operations, I took joints in the hospital, man. As soon as I could get out of bed, I was in the stairwell having a joint. And it got me through. So anyway, November last year I started on cannabis oil because I knew I had to cure myself, no one else. I've tried everything they had. I've had that many, I've had 50 hours worth of surgery in the last 5 years, for God's sake. I've taken that many pills, I amazed myself that I kept taking them. Anyway, so I've arrived in cannabis oil. I started using it orally. I also source, because I've been a smoker for so long, sourcing leaf isn't really a drama where I come from. It used to get thrown away in bucket loads. Now I take it off my friends and I put it in a smoothie every day, which is part of my health regime, as people have been saying earlier. This is a wonderful, wonderful medicine, but it's not just a bloody miracle, you know. You've got to stop putting shit in your body to start with, and you've got to start, like, most of us really pay more attention to the fuel we put into our motor car than we do to our body. That's really bizarre. But who puts E10 in their fuel, or who puts the good red fuel in from the Shell server? I know I put the good red fuel in, but it's only been the last year and a half that I've started looking at the energy we like to put in my own body. So let's stop worrying about the fuel we put in our cars, start worrying about the fuel we put into our own bodies, because as long as we keep putting shit in there, taking the medicine is totally pointless. So I've altered my diet. I'm using fresh Greek yogurt, I'm using rice milk, I'm using the good Himalayan salt, I'm using all the things that I can do to get my diet right, and I'm using the cannabis oil at the same time. I return for MRIs in another month's time, so because I've been watching the effects on my body, and they really have been totally minimal. I still smoke to get stoned because I get little effect out of taking the bloody oil, to be honest with you, and I enjoy being stoned. So, over my treatment since November, what I've done by watching the effects it's had on my body, and as I said, they've been pretty minimal, I've been gradually increasing my dosage because this is why I haven't become involved in this government scheme, because it's proper bullshit. We don't need to be testing whether cannabis oil cures cancer. It does. What we need to be testing is what doses do we take to cure what disease. We need to be testing what strains are best for curing what disease. We know it does this. Let's just get the proper research happening. For this reason, I'm not involved in the government research, and I quite proudly say my name wherever I go, and I tell this story wherever I go. My accountant and my dentist phoned me for help from their friends this week, because I tell everyone I come in contact with what the hell is going on in the world, because what is really happening is wrong. The truth is amongst there, there's medicines amongst there, and people are scared to come out and seek it. If I make myself more open, perhaps more people would be more willing to come out and let themselves be open and let themselves be cured. Well, I don't make my own oil. However, I've been through university. I researched fairly well. I got into a group called Medical Cannabis Users of Australia on Facebook, and through researching the information that's put up there, and through researching through a lot of the healers on these pages that have had such fantastic results healing other people, my source too, I thought, was one of the better curers.
Father of the Year.
And I've been for the last 4 months. What I've also been doing over the last 4 months is I started off treating myself.
It's been exceptional.
I've been half a mil in a capsule 3 times a day. I gradually increased the half a mil in that capsule up to about, I know when I buy them, the AA capsules hold 0.92 of a milligram. So I'm having increased it to full dosage of AA capsules 3 times a day. I found that was having little effect on me, so I increased my dosage again, because I'm probably the first person to actually treat chordoma. So I'm logging what I do, so if it works, well then we know how we cure chordoma. Or at least we know, maybe not cure, maybe it may come back again, but we know how to get it out of my bloody body, which is where I'd like it. At the moment, I've been on 3 capsules a day of just under a milligram for about 2 months, and I'm increasing it now for the last month before my x-ray. I'm going to bump it up to 6 capsules a day. That'll be every 4 hours taken orally. I figure in the last month, I just want to flood the system. I really want this to be gone, because if this is gone, I will be talking to much bigger crowds than this and telling them what this wonderful plant can do for our bloody world.
Any questions? Any more questions for Paul? I'll call Tim. It's an exceptional effort. What I love about Paul and David is that they're game to be open about it. And everyone you talk to, heaps of it spreads by word of mouth. That's what we've found. And when you've had a good story, then they're the people to ask about and how it works. The other thing is, you've got to do a holistic approach. I totally agree. You've got to look at your diet, you've got to look at every angle of your lifestyle. Trizzy wants to talk about that for a moment, don't you? She does. So it's a bit anarchic, hippie feral here. A few people want to say a few words, and I'm open to that.